listening to the How to Health podcast. Turn up that stereo, plug in those earbuds, or pull up a chair. It's time to master your health journey. Here are your hosts, Dr. Heidi Cook and athletic trainer Tyler Smith. Let's ride.
Howdy ho.
Good morning. How are you this morning? How's our tiredness? Last time we talked, it was a new level of just tired.
Yes, which carried on throughout last week, but I've had, I think, 2 or 3 nights of good sleep since Saturday. I think Saturday night, Sunday night, Monday, or anyways, the days don't matter. But I think I've had 3, I wouldn't say good, but solid nights of sleep. Last night was not great, but at least it's not being last week it was just stacked. By the time I got to Wednesday, I think I had 3 horrible nights of sleep. And in those, by the time I got to Wednesday, they had just compounded. And
sure.
Yeah, having some good night's sleeps mixed into the week has made this morning feel a lot more manageable. Where last Wednesday, I think I was half conscious.
I mean, that's better. I mean, it's amazing how those things can just compound. If you don't get one, you're kind of okay, but you start to get 2 and 3 and you're just half the human being you're supposed to be throughout the course of the day.
Yeah, it's so interesting. So I think have done a good job of not letting the Oura Ring data get into my head or because it's honestly comical at this point. The one thing that bugs me is looking at the time in bed versus the time asleep. And I'm just I'm doing the things, I'm carving out the time, just let my body just won't let me sleep. And so I think that's really the only frustrating thing. But it's giving me a peek into what's to come, I think.
I was going to say, that's kind of the cruel irony of that is you're probably not going to get much sleep after this thing, the baby is born, and then your body's not really letting you get any sleep before, because they always say bank that sleep right now because you're going to need it later. And you're like, ha ha ha, that's not happening. So
that's a funny joke. And I was talking to my doctor about it, and she's like, we don't really know exactly why it happens. She's like, but I think it is your body's way of prepping to feed, essentially, as you get into that final trimester.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, last night I think I got up to pee 3 separate times and woke up, a handful of others on top of that. So it's just it's I just take a bunch of consecutive 45-minute naps.
That's all it is. Just naps. Try to hit a little REM sleep, a little deep sleep, and then we're done.
Yeah, that's pretty much what it feels like.
if we're lucky.
If we're lucky. But this week, we are 33 weeks. Baby is the size of a lunchbox.
Nice.
Yes.
Do kids still use lunchboxes?
I don't know. I think so.
I mean, my son's in middle school, so we just have the little insulated bag. I just remember growing up as a kid, you just wanted to see what every human's lunchbox was with the little thermoses in there and the whole night. Yeah.
Space Jam lunchbox.
Space Jam.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yes, I had some killer lunchboxes growing up.
You would literally just beg and plead your parents to get specific lunchboxes.
Yes, precisely. Buddy, stop. My goodness. Gus is on a new level this morning. Okay, so he is the size of a lunchbox or the size of a pineapple.
Pineapple. Do you love me some pineapple?
Over 17 inches, 17.3, almost 5 pounds.
Have we had was it the growth scan? Have we had that yet?
No,
I thought you mentioned it. Okay.
next week.
I want to know like comparison to the model of the computer where
He's at.
Where he is at here.
They'll usually give you like percentiles at this point. So we'll see where he's at percentile wise. Almost 5 pounds. And this week, my baby has a fully formed brain.
There we go.
How exciting is that?
Did you guys I was trying to check. Did we kind of sort of announce the name on social media or no? I thought I saw it. Well, you haven't. Your family did though.
I bet they did.
They did. Yeah. Cause I was like, wait a minute. I didn't know if she was doing that yet or not.
Yeah. Not that I ever like said that it needed to be a secret.
Right.
Because it doesn't. Like his name is his name, but at the same time, like I've not said it on mine just because like I don't want opinions.
No, yeah, I get it. Well, and the dumb part of all of that is like someone will have an association, but like within your family and when you're doing stuff, or like you specifically, like you're just going to make a whole different association with that name. And so like, unless it's, a traumatic name from your past, it's kind of null and void. You know what I mean?
Yeah. But yeah, I didn't want a ton of opinions. And I feel like once he's here and his name is his name, people usually just keep their opinions to themselves. I also just didn't want, 27 people messaging me being like, OMG, my dog's name is.
My dog's name is Stewie. It's so great. Yeah, no, like I totally understand. So
yeah, it's not a secret. It's out there. I think like, I'm pretty sure my sister has talked about it. My sister-in-law, my mother-in-law, like.
Although I'm gonna say this, I didn't see the gender reveal. Did we not have like a plane fly over or like a ball explode or?
No, our gender reveal was Sam and I sitting on the couch and looking at the lab results on my phone, high-fiving, eating some mac and cheese, and going for a walk.
That is amazing because I'm just gonna be a traditional old person and be like, the gender reveals have gotten way out of control. Like I don't really get it, but sure.
Yeah. Truthfully, so we were going to do something more. It still was just going to be Sam and I. But I was going to have somebody write it in an envelope or like in a card, and like put it in an envelope for us. And we were going to go just like have a little picnic, like up at the base of the mountains and stuff. And so that was the plan. And so the lab work came in and again, like we were just going to do that, just the two of us, just to like kind of make it a little bit more, I don't know, special, but like a big grandiose thing just like really isn't our vibe. For anybody that did a big gender reveal, I think that's really fun. Like I've been to gender reveals before that like are a fun party and gathering of like your friends and family and all of that stuff. But like we knew we were going to have, a baby shower and all this stuff.
Yeah, and I think like the cake frostings, the balloons, like that's all, or just like the little pop thing. Great. But I mean, you've seen some of those ones now that are like caused forest fires, or that one plane one where someone actually died.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, let's just do a little something like cake frosting. You don't get to see it. Someone else makes it for you. Yeah, that's great.
Yeah. But anyways, when our first lab work came back as insufficient, which also gave me an absolute panic attack. They basically said that there wasn't enough fetal DNA in the sample. And so like in my brain, like I went, worst case scenario. And so that was kind of a living hell for like 2 weeks while we waited for like the new lab work to come in to like make sure everything was okay. And it was just truthfully like that sample didn't have enough fetal DNA in it. And so anyways, all of that to say, by the time we took the first sample, waited the 10-day waiting period, got the results. The results were insufficient. I panicked. They wouldn't let me retake the lab for another week, I think. And then I retook it. And then I had another 10-day waiting period. Like Sam and I were just like, let's just look at it.
Yeah, sure. Totally understandable.
Like, because we didn't know if it was going to be good news or bad news or, anything like that. And so, for anybody who is or has been pregnant out there, I think they can relate to when you get any sort of like questionable or not normal lab result in your pregnancy, like you just immediately start Googling and it's just like all worst case scenario.
Yeah, don't do that. Don't Google. It's not going to help you.
It was just like low fetal DNA can mean this, or this genetic mutation and blah, blah, blah. And I'm just like, oh my God. So anyways, it was very relieving to hear that everything was good. And it was a fun little just like celebration of just the two of us. Like I will never forget that moment because I was fully convinced that it was a girl in my brain. And to like sit there and read that, DNA is what I don't know how they phrase it, but it's like DNA is something in alignment with or something, I can't remember, with male. And I was like, that it was crazy.
Nice.
Yeah. So anyways, we are cooking along, final stretch. Thank you to everybody who listens to these intros and me blather on about my pregnancy every week.
I mean, the nice part is that at some point, if you ever wanted to, you get to relive it and just listen to the first part and see how it was.
Like,
Maybe you'll do that when you're in conversations about the next one. Be like, hold on, let me recap and see if I want to do this again. I have a live or a recorded feed of what I went through. So let me work through this.
Oh yeah, in week 32, I stopped sleeping.
Oh yeah.
Yes, I think that will be a good reminder. I was telling somebody else, I was like, the only reason or the only way that people have more than one kid is if you forget all of the bad parts and only remember the good parts.
Yeah. I think it also depends on we adopted Quentin, but he was a piece of cake kid, loved sleeping, didn't have we didn't have one night where he was up screaming all night long. Not one. Like we used to have to wake him up when he had RSV and give him oxygen treatments. But I mean, that kid from day one is like, no, I love sleep. It's my favorite thing in the world. So when he's not sick, and even that was not terrible, but yeah, he loves sleep. So that always made it easier too.
Maybe that will be my kid. He's been like way more active during the day and way more quiet at night lately. I'm like, maybe he's figuring out a sleep cycle. And then
that's a big maybe.
Yeah, LOL. And then last night he kicked me all night long. So I was like, well, never mind.
Just kidding.
Yeah. Anyways, I have no good pivot.
None.
Pregnancy can be an emotional time.
It can, but hey, that's not bad because you will get some emotional hunger cues and cravings.
Yes.
But I think the caveat in this is like, you're pregnant. Just, yep, there we go. We're good. Like it's probably out of your control. Your hormones are kind of a little bit all over the radar. So we're not going to try to think too much into this.
Yes. So 2 weeks ago, we recorded a podcast on hunger cues and where to start, how to better establish those if you've been, allowing some sort of third party to make all of those decisions for you for a period of time. And in that, we very briefly mentioned, this emotional eating side of things. And in that, we received a couple of questions and we very quickly kind of mentioned it a little bit in that previous episode. If you haven't listened to that episode, it's, I believe, 2 episodes back. But we knew and understood that this seems to be a common reoccurring problem for a lot of individuals. Something that we deal with a lot with our clients, and just something I think in the realm of reestablishing hunger cues or just eating in general. Once people remove like restrictions and parameters and things that they can then struggle with, or often we get into a cycle of restrictions and parameters and then kind of going down a binge with emotional eating. And so we received a couple of questions. They kind of go hand in hand, so I'm just going to read them both. And then we'll address that and dive deeper into, we wanted to give the proper space and time for the emotional eating topic instead of trying to shove it into that other episode.
Sure, yeah.
So question, the first one is pretty straightforward. They asked, how do I stop spiraling when emotional eating? And I think that seems to be a common pattern, and that kind of ties into this next question of like, sometimes we recognize what's happening and we continue forward anyways.
Yeah.
You know, that's like a common theme within emotional eating is like knowing and understanding and recognizing like I'm not hungry and I continue to eat.
Right.
Tends to often be a pattern, or like we feel like it's this like spiral. We, go in and out of the pantry, 10 times. And then all of a sudden we're like, we feel sick and we're like, whoa, what just happened?
Right.
And this individual said, I've done a lot of nutrition coaching extensively, so it's less about the moderation piece and more about determining why do I want to eat past hunger / ignore cues and building skills to combat that particular habit.
Yeah, I mean, it's a complex issue in a couple of different facets. Is like you can attack it on a couple, and when I mean attack it, that's probably not even the best word. Dissect it a little bit on a couple different levels, because when you're looking at like the food itself, like what you're eating, and some people saying like, I'll have some sort of emotional event that kind of triggers or fatigue or something like that, and I'll start eating specific foods, and I'll just keep going back to them. And like you said, and I eat past a point that I don't need to. You can look at like what can we do to soften that effect a little bit sometimes on the nutritional side, and that would be more of some things we've done with people in the past is like, okay, if you're really craving like Reese's peanut butter cups, throw like a Greek yogurt before that. So you know what I mean? You're kind of buffering some of that. So you can still have what you want, but like you're still trying to make a healthier whole food choice. But I think those are also like secondary and like kind of the step after trying to kind of divulge and think about where we're at mentally and what is manifesting itself up here that is creating the hunger cue. And sometimes that's in my mind, usually with people, the bigger step to try to dissect, because the food is kind of secondary as to what is going on in our brain, what has triggered this, and like why, and trying to really get that out, get that down on paper or something like that, so we can start to solve. Like it's probably not going to happen right away, but we can start to connect dots so we find why that pattern is happening.
Yeah, I agree. I think there's lots of skills or techniques that we can apply on the back end of a lot of this, like, and it's also very nuanced or individual, right? Like, just because you are eating past hunger cues or struggling with restrict binge cycles or anything like that doesn't necessarily mean that it is emotional eating, right? That could also be a true restrict binge pattern that has nothing to do with our emotional state, right? It could just be like a different kind of psychological loop of restriction, taboo, like food, like feeling very enticed towards that particular food, our brain not understanding or recognizing that that's not going to be there or be available ever again. And so we like try to capitalize on that opportunity and get everything, we want in or down in that session, right?
Right.
But emotional eating, we typically categorize because we're utilizing food or the act of eating as a source of coping.
Yep.
Right. So we're dealing with some sort of emotion. And for some people, it can also be positive, right? I think we often look at emotional eating as like I never want to label like emotions as like good or bad, but just like bear with me as maybe I don't use the like perfect terminology when kind of classifying these types of emotions. But I think we can look at emotions like frustration, stress, sadness, like those more kind of uncomfortable type emotions, and utilize food to give us dopamine and like those happy hormones briefly in the moment, and utilize that as a way to suppress those more uncomfortable emotions. And then that pattern continues. But often then what happens is we feel, let's say, sadness, and we go seeking for something to cope with that. And we, choose food. Then we are continuing to seek food for the dopamine in order to suppress that emotion. And that often goes much further beyond our actual physiological hunger, right? And so because once we stop eating, that dopamine goes away, and often then we're more frustrated or more sad because of what we just did, and the cycle then kind of self-perpetuates and continues. And so as Tyler said, while uncomfortable, I think I think individuals often want to look to what strategies can I use? Right. And we have those strategies. We talked about how do we pair something that's going to give fullness and satiety along with, the dopamine from the food that we're craving, and how can we pair those together and see how that can maybe prevent us from overeating on a particular food with low nutritional value. But in that same breath, if the emotions are really what's driving the cart, we're going to eat past those fullness cues typically anyways. And so while more complex, more challenging, and, harder overall, what really needs to happen is the addressing of the emotion itself, and find ways, different ways to process through and or cope with and or address the root of the emotion that we are experiencing.
Yeah. And I think that's exactly what I was thinking too, is like, we can give you nutritional strategies to minimize it, and that's not necessarily a bad thing at all.
Yeah.
But like you're saying, the hort, combine two words there. The horse that is driving the cart is the emotion. And that's something in most of these cases, I'm not going to say all, that is like internally, like an internal struggle. And a lot of times we have to find a way to express that or get that out, and then kind of dive a layer underneath that and be like, well, why is this? Let's say, I'm a mom and I have 2 kids and I'm stressed beyond belief. And like when I get really, really stressed, I go to eat. Well, sometimes pausing, like this is kind of the pot calling the kettle black, because I started a journal thing and then I stopped it, which I probably shouldn't have. But giving yourself time to write down, like right now I'm feeling stressed. And then giving a layer as to like, well, why am I stressed? Going through your day and like what is triggering these things is going to probably give you, I think it does two things. It slows you down a little bit. It allows you to take some of the baggage that is internal and put it on a piece of paper or somewhere else. And for a lot of just humans in general, the idea or the concept of taking your feelings and emotions and getting them out on paper, getting them out like on a computer or an email, kind of like lets the monkeys out of the barrel, for like, lack of a better term, like talking to someone, being able to kind of address what is going on in here, kind of takes some of that load off and will kind of allow you to probably hopefully get less of that secondary reaction in what you're eating. But I mean, sometimes even that, it's like getting those out. And let's say it's, your husband is just not helped you this week, getting those things out and like expressing, I needed help. I felt like you could have helped me here, 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 here. You may not send it or you may not give it to him, but it's at least giving you an avenue to get some of your emotions out. And then the more we can learn to process that, the more we can deal with like the secondary. I mean, there's also like therapists and stuff like that, which can help you like actually work through these things. But there's a lot of different avenues. But I just think in a lot of these cases, or even like having those not difficult conversations, but conversations with a spouse and like just sitting down and game planning, like it's not much different if you had a problem with a business, like two departments aren't seeing eye to eye. You're going to probably sit down and be like, hey, in order for this whole thing to be successful, we need to get on the same page. We need to work out these kinks. Sometimes with your spouse or significant other, that's like just having a short business meeting and being like, this is what I'm feeling, using a lot of I feelings. You know what I mean? Because when you say like if Heidi and I are sitting there and I'm like, you're not doing this, you're not doing that, you automatically put someone on the defensive, which is not what you want to do. But expressing your own self and like those type of strategies are going to help you start to get to where we're feeling and why.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think there's a deeper level of like dopamine, self-satisfaction, and like happy hormone release that comes from resolving or gaining insight into what it is that you are experiencing versus continuing to suppress or mask or seek those, dopamine or like good hormones or like happy feelings in other things. And it's, it kind of just is a testament to that, like, what's the quote? Like, anything worthwhile is, like involves some deeper level of work, right? Like what's the quote that I'm thinking?
Yeah, I know you're saying it. Anything worthwhile? Yeah, I can't remember.
My mind has gone blank, but you guys know what I'm talking about. Like there is a deeper level of satisfaction and again, like happy hormone release that comes through processing, resolving, working through, or just gaining insight into your own emotions and working through those kind of more internal problems that we're maybe utilizing food to suppress. And then on the flip side of that, once we have gained that insight, maybe it doesn't solve anything. Maybe it doesn't solve the problem. Maybe it doesn't solve the, sadness or frustration or whatever it is we're experiencing. But now that we have insight into it, we can maybe look to other ways to cope with that emotion. So like I'm going to use Tyler as an example just because we've talked about it on recent episodes of like, feeling some, let's say like work frustration, right? or stress, like work is stressful, work is frustrating, there would be a really easy avenue for him to, go and utilize food to cope with that stress and frustration. And while he's processed through, identified, maybe the stress and frustration isn't going to go away. So what's a way that I can redirect this in a positive way? And we've been doing boxing and hitting the bag and redirecting some of that into something that can, give himself the brain space to process through maybe some of those frustrations, but then also, having a positive outcome with that as well in terms of doing something good for his body versus perpetuating a negative cycle.
I think the other thing it does too, which is very powerful, that you hit it on the head. You're probably not going to solve it, but sometimes in us just giving ourselves the ability to identify the emotion and the source of the emotion can kind of help you work through it. If I could say, like, you're in this emotional state and you're like, I'm really hungry. And then you pause and you're like, you know what? I've had a really stressful day at work. I'm guessing this is not my hunger cues. This is my stress. And giving you the ability to identify it. Nope, this isn't hunger. This is my stress kicking in. And just saying because sometimes you're going to want to probably give into it and be like, no, I'm just going to eat today. But giving yourself the pause or the hesitation to say, this is stressful. Usually I go do this. Why don't I try something else today and see if that helps this emotion? Just the identification of it. And I laugh, but you can even, I know for some people with anxiety, they even label the anxiety as am I hungry? Nope. This is Steve, my stress that is coming back again. I don't need to do this right now. I'll check in on it later, but I'm going to go do something else instead.
Yeah. Yeah. How can I address what I'm actually feeling? I've had clients who put it's almost similar to, we're talking about eating, but anything can be used as a coping mechanism. And I think another very common one that people use to numb or suppress emotions is social media. It's like an escape almost from reality. And what I think is interesting about my, I know I talk about it all the time, but my 1Sec app, in order to access the app, I have to, you can't see it. There, yeah. You can see it. I have to label what I'm feeling. And it's bored, stressed, tired, procrastinating, anxious, sad, can't sleep, on the toilet is an option. And then I added one for work. I think you could do something similar. And I've had clients put almost a chart on their pantry that's little happy face, sad face, mad face, stressed, anxious, all of these different things, to where it's literally in front of them before they walk, into the pantry, and they have to identify, it just allows them to take that beat and examine how they're feeling before they dive in. And sometimes just that simple beat allows them to redirect or find something that addresses what they're feeling more poignantly. I don't know if that was the right word, but more nail on the head versus just suppression.
Absolutely.
Let's head to the sauna and wrap this up.
Let's go.
What's up, everyone? Welcome. Let's head to sauna and let's dive in.
Let's go. All right. Big takeaways from today. I know it was kind of a shorter episode, but we wanted to keep it straightforward this week because I think this is a topic that we can go round and round and round on, emotional eating. And I think for a lot of individuals, we want there to be a magic bullet solution, right? No, just tell me how to fix my emotional eating. And I think the reason that we didn't want to sit here and dissect it for a full hour is because, like, the truth of the matter is we need to have some sort of identification process. We can have, coping mechanisms on the back end, but the real way that we're going to move through or move past a pattern of emotional eating is addressing the emotion itself and finding ways to either address it, move through it, or cope with it in a healthy way.
Yeah, I think in this particular case, you're absolutely right. Everything is going to be individualized, and even the plan to fix it is going to not look the same, probably from one person to the next. And the ability to pause, to, identify, reflect, write down, talk, all those different things are going to be an avenue to try to help you cope with this. And obviously, if you have a lot of questions on that, this is where the Q&As help a lot in contacting Heidi and myself on different strategies. But just know it's going to be individual. It's probably going to be a trial and error. Some things might work, but it may not work. So trying a couple of these different things that we've talked about until you find that sweet spot and you have that ability to at least connect and understand the emotional eating on your level and why it affects you the way it does.
Absolutely. Are you ready for some rapid fire trivia?
Ready.
Tyler has a hard out.
Yeah.
to catch a shuttle, and so we're going to rapid fire through this trivia. Okay, what is the only food, it's all food related because we're talking about eating. What is the only food that will last forever and never spoil?
Twinkies.
Nope. Honey.
Oh, that's true. Yeah. Sadly,
Honey.
I knew that from a video game, but that's a different subject.
The oldest jar of honey ever found is believed to be 5,500 years old.
Wow. Interesting.
Kind of disgusting. I don't want to taste what 55-year-old honey is like.
I kind of do, though.
5,500-year-old honey.
I kind of do. I want to see what it tastes like.
Oh. Where were chocolate chip cookies invented?
Was it in the United States or outside the United States?
In the United States.
Chicago.
Massachusetts.
So close.
So close. 1930, when Rook Wakefield, the owner of the Toll House Inn, added broken pieces of a chocolate bar to her cookie dough, experimenting to melt them.
Nestle Tool House.
Thank you to Ruth Wakefield for inventing my most favorite dessert. Now I want chocolate chip cookies. Okay. What is the common name for the Chinese gooseberry?
Aki berry?
No. Aki?
Or no, how do you say it? Acai, that's it. I don't know. Blueberry.
No, it is the kiwi fruit. In the 1950s, it got renamed in part because consumers did not want to buy Chinese items during the peak of the Cold War.
Oh, there you go.
So kiwi / the Chinese gooseberry. Okay, 2 more. Spam was created in, or not created in, a popular food in Hawaii. But 2 words were combined to create the name for spam. What are those 2 words?
Ham?
Yes.
And, I don't know the other one.
Spiced ham.
Spiced ham. All right.
By Ken, I can't pronounce his last name, a brother of a Hormel executive who entered a naming contest for the brand and won $100 prize for his submission. He only got $100.
I was going to say he only got $100 for coining spam. That's a ripoff.
I know, that's what I said. Okay, last one. Which fast food restaurant has the largest number of retail locations in the world?
I want to say either McDonald's or Starbucks.
It is not McDonald's. McDonald's came in second, and it is not Starbucks. It is Subway.
Subway.
Has approximately 41,500 locations around the globe. McDonald's coming in second with only 37,900.
So sad.
When was this? Hold on, when was this written? Updated. Ooh, this could be outdated information. I feel like all those Subways have closed in the last.
Yeah, they have. That is true.
This was from January 2022, so we might need to do some digging.
All right, we will.
All right. Have fun on your travel this week, and Thank you for everybody for tuning in.
Thanks for listening. We'll see you next week.